Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. I'm the GM Philosopher, and today we're talking about how to plan awesome D&D sessions. Session planning is an integral part of being a GM, and while improvisation and adaptation are very important, it's still important to plan out your session, even if it's just the basics, to ensure a smooth session, a session where there are balanced encounters, a session where there's at least some kind of idea what's going to happen will generally make for a better game. But what do you do? How do you prepare for it? Well, I'm going to give you my 6 tips, my 6 steps that I use to plan out every single session. I know every GM does this differently, but this is how I do it. And I'm going to give you a bonus tip at the end, which is kind of the final tip, the icing on the cake, the pièce de résistance, as they say. It is going to be the tip that ties all these other 6 tips together. So after these 6 tips, you're going to stick around for that one because that's going to be the big one that's going to really make the biggest difference. All right, let's dive right into it. First of all, step number 1, I like to plan my sessions with very basic outlines for the main story plot arc. So basically what this means is whatever my main story plot arc is, I think about, do I want to forward that arc in this campaign on an intentional way from the GM level, right? The players may try to forward it on their own, which is awesome, but do I want to make any moves? Okay, so this is a question I need to answer. And if I answer yes, then I want to figure out how to do it. This is very important, and this is the first thing you usually think about. Speaking of that, if you are looking for a way to create amazing plot arcs on the fly, I would highly recommend that you download my Ultimate Plot Randomizer ebook. It has 4 D100 tables in it that allow you to roll plot arcs on the fly. Download it, and you'll also be added to my email list. You'll get that download link in the first email, and I send out emails 3 times a week with GM tips, notifications for events, all kinds of awesome stuff, so you're not going to want to miss it. That leads me to step number 2. I like to pick out the smaller story arcs or open loops I want to push forward during the session and plan how I'm going to move them forward. We all know that in addition to big story plot arcs, we always have like side quest plot arcs. And every session, I'm always thinking, okay, which ones do I want to push forward? Once again, players may push some forward on their own. This is awesome. But as a GM, which ones do I want to take initiative to push forward? It might be relationships with NPCs, might be some kind of mystery, some bad guy from a different side quest might come and try to do battle with the PCs, whatever it is, right? I want to decide which ones, if any, I'm going to deploy. And if I'm going to deploy or push forward any of these smaller plot arcs, I want to make a note of how I'm going to do it, kind of what the plan is. And this is just something that is important to think about in advance. With that being said, there can be a lot of variability in this. And if you stay till that bonus tip at the end, I kind of cover like how to deal with the variability. But just as an example, I one time had my group basically doing a main story plot thing. Well, I didn't have them doing it. They were doing it because their characters were kind of pursuing some kind of like goal. But then this random ninja dude from the void dimension showed up to attack them. He was from a side quest completely unrelated. He just chose to use this time when they just happened to be in this like dark apartment to like attack the party and use it as an opportunity. And I had that planned from the beginning. And it's like, why would you do that? Well, this plot arc was coming back around to the players. I wanted to revisit it, and I wanted to take initiative to do that, to make that plot arc kind of come around in the session. So as a GM, you want to think about those smaller plot arcs. That leads us to tip number 3. And this is always the third thing that I think about. I like to create a theme for the session that'll serve as the main session arc storyline. So the characters may be pursuing the main storyline, right? There might be a main storyline that might happen. Some of that stuff may happen during the session. There may even be smaller plot arcs, side quests. However, I always like to give every session its own theme, right? And this could mean naming the session, giving it kind of a general vibe. This could mean giving the session itself sort of a progression where you fit different plot arcs together. For example, let's say that you want to theme your session to be kind of like a horror episode, right? So I think of it like episodes in a TV show. Maybe this episode is like based on Halloween. Okay, so you were going to put a dragon in. They're going to fight the dragon as part of the main plot arc. Maybe they have a side quest where there's like a bandit or an assassin following them. Okay, this is awesome. They might have to face those people, but maybe I want to theme the session as like a Halloween themed session. So I'm going to, when they go into the dragon's lair, I'm going to theme it like a creepy Halloween-like dungeon, right? So this is kind of like a thematic thing. This is something that's kind of fun to just let that session stand out on its own rather than as just, another chapter in a long progressive story. I do like to try to make sessions stand upon their own feet, make them sort of episodic, if you will. I think this adds a lot of flair, and it assists you in setting up cliffhangers like in the next session. I think it does this a little better, and also kind of tends to, I don't know, you can kind of wrap it up with a nice bow and give it more resolution for the session, I feel like, anyway. Anyway, so with that being said, that's something I do. And that leads me to tip number 4. I think about how each player's personal plot arc can be forwarded. Now, every player in my games has a personal plot arc. This is like a thing that they're trying to accomplish. This is a personal thing to their storyline. Generally, we create these when we create character backstories. And while I may not make huge strides in every single player character personal arc every session, I will try to make a big, kind of like monumental stride in at least one player's personal arc every session. And I try to at least touch on personal player plot arcs a little bit in every session. Maybe it's just a sentence here, maybe it's a little clue here, maybe it's a vision or a dream they have here. Like I try to make little things to touch on it. I think that this helps to tie the players emotionally to the storyline and helps to keep them kind of more invested in it. And I think that this is a really useful thing for making the game more emotionally stimulating, creating greater connection, creating greater emotional investment for the players. And so it makes the game a lot more fun in that sense. And I try to at least do a little bit of that, and I plan it out ahead of every session for every single player, at least a little bit. It doesn't have to be major, just a little thing for every player every session that ties back to their personal plot arc. And that leads me to tip number 5. I also think about NPC story arcs that characters might notice and how to forward those. So my NPCs have their own things going on too. These are not going to be in the spotlight. These are not things that are going to like be right in the players' faces, generally speaking, but they're going to be things that are going to exist on the periphery. Players might see evidence of them happening, and so I plan those out too. Players can choose to pursue them or not. For example, players might have 2 key NPCs, and they're on a ship, and during the night they hear 2 of them kind of getting into a spat toward the end of the bow, and one of them is saying like, why are you trying to step in and ruin this for me? It's like something like a little drama going on. Now, the players may not care. They may be like, whatever, it's NPC drama. And that's going to be the end of it. It's going to get dropped. However, I'm going to know what's going on. And drama sometimes crops up with NPCs. When you have NPCs around, they're going to have some drama. So I think about how I want to forward all of the main plot arcs of the NPCs too. And some of these things may not even be visible to the players. But every once in a while, some of them will be visible. It'll just be a matter of when they happen and what's going on. And if players see it, they can choose to take notice, or they can choose to just ignore it. If they choose to ignore it, it may be at their own peril. They might face problems with NPCs later on. Whereas if they address it, those NPCs might come to be closer friends to them, trust them more, build more loyalty, etc. So it's kind of a player choice, but it's a thing I like to do. Speaking of building relationships, you can now join me and many other awesome GMs in my free Discord channel. Link is in the description. Come join us. We do weekly hangouts. We even have a revolving door D&D game that goes on every single week. As long as there are spots available, you can play, could maybe even GM. And if that fills up, hey, we may get a GM to start a second one and just keep on going, playing awesome games, being awesome. So you might want to check that out. With that being said, that's going to lead me to point number 6. Now, really quick, before we jump too far into tip number 6 here, just remember this bonus tip is coming up in a minute. You're not going to want to miss it. This is going to be the tip that's going to tie it all together. With that being said, step number 6 is pretty simple. We take all the plot arc stuff we decided on earlier in our planning and we create it. We source it, we get it ready. This might mean creating stat blocks for monsters, creating maps of dungeons. This might mean doing any prep work that's needed, preparing magic items, preparing clues, etc. Basically, you kind of planned out what plot arcs you want to hit proactively in your session planning checklist. And now it's time to kind of do the legwork to put that stuff together, which is super fun. And it's kind of like the work part, but fun work, obviously. And that is going to be it for my 6 steps. Now we have the bonus tip. This is the big tip. And this is actually really important. Before I jump into it, don't forget to give me a thumbs up. Drop me a comment. Let me know what you think. How do you prepare for awesome D&D sessions? Also, if you have a question, drop it in the comments. I would love to answer it, talk about it, and hit that subscribe button. All these things help me to grow my channel, and I just thank you from the bottom of my heart. Like a humble adventurer, I'm journeying upwards towards 5,000 subs, and that is my next goal. And you can help me by hitting that thumbs up button and leaving a comment, hitting that subscribe button. This is so helpful. Thank you so much. All right. Let's talk about this main tip, the bonus tip, the one that ties it all together. Remember that by the time you leave room for player improvisation and immersive role play, you'll have a lot less time than you may think. So make it super simple. And don't be afraid to insert plot, arc progressions, spur of the moment as opportunities arise, okay? Be willing to adapt them to the moment. Sometimes players will set you up to change your plans in the best way possible. You might have planned for the players to go into the Halloween-themed creepy dungeon, but they might just take off in a whole different direction and you think, this is odd. Creepy graveyard. Guess what? Dragon comes up out of the graveyard. They're not going to know any different. It might so happen that the players are going to set you up to change your plans in the best way possible. So be aware of that, right? Chance favors the prepared mind. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. The work we do setting up the session doesn't have to be concrete, set in stone. It can be a very flexible framework that we could overlay onto any player decisions. This gives players agency and helps them to play the characters they want to play in the manner they want to play it, but then also to take advantage of our awesome D&D prep work. So as GMs. So there you go. That's where improvisation and adaptation on the part of the GM can be so powerful. With that being said, that is going to be a wrap. Thank you so much for coming by. I'm here almost every day creating videos about the best game in the world, D&D. So hey, check out those resources in the description. Join my mailing list, give me a thumbs up, and join my Discord channel. And hey, I will see all of you awesome people on the next one.